This is the business of sports.
The business of sports can be intimidating or hard for a startup to break into.
We really appreciate when our owners are actually there, with us through the journey.
Teams, ours especially, have been very intentional to diversify at all levels of the company.
I think we're in the golden years for the NFL and college football.
Our demographic reach has continued to expand.
This is going to be really unlocking the streaming platform for sports fans.
Sports valuations are rising. We'll see when they peak.
You don't have to be the best in your sport to make a whole ton of money.
Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio.
This is the Bloomberg Business of Sports, where we explore the big money issues in the world of sports. I'm Michael Barr, along with Scarlet and Vanessa Perdomo. Damian Sassower will be back next week. Coming up on the show, we talk golf and the PGA WORKS Collegiate Championship with Kohler Chair and CEO David Kohler. The Kohler family owns Whistling Straits in Wisconsin, host of that tournament. We'll talk with him about his family and company's long relationship with golf.
We've been really good partners with the PGA of America for decades.
All that and more is on the way on the Bloomberg Business of Sports. But first, Unrivaled Sports, which runs a bunch of youth sports venues and events, is raising $120 million in a funding round led by Dick's Sporting Goods. Here to talk to us about Unrivaled's latest plans is Bloomberg News senior reporter covering celebrities and athletes, Kim Bhasin. Kim, welcome back to the Bloomberg Business of Sports.
Always happy to be here.
Another great article. You mentioned that Dick's Sporting is leading a $120 million funding round for Unrivaled. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so Unrivaled Sports is a youth sports company. They own a bunch of venues and do all these tournaments, programming for kids. And Dick's Sporting Goods has been pretty active in this space. They haven't done events themselves, but they do have a company called Game Changer, which they bought back in 2016. It's a streaming service. It started as like a scoreboard. You can watch your kids' scores live as they're playing on some field somewhere. But now it's a whole streaming service where you can watch them play their games.
I never knew that. That's a great idea that you have a scoreboard for your kids. I'm sorry, Scarlet, but it's a great idea, man. Wow.
It's all about how youth sports is becoming much more professionalized than it ever was. It was kind of a grab bag before of like parents volunteering their time, and now it's becoming something that rivals college sports, something that is really streamlined and easy for people to use. The user experience is high. Kim, tell us a little bit more about Unrivaled, because it's got some hefty PE titans behind it.
It does. So Josh Harris and David Blitzer founded this thing last year, and they hired Andy Campion, a former Nike and Disney executive, to run it. And the big takeaway there is that this is national. This is not just a little thing where they buy a couple properties. They operate in 30 states now and have grown from starting with baseball and softball. Flag football is now a big focus for them. They started to work in lacrosse, and basketball seems like it's going to be another big expansion point for them. It's just a natural expansion from where they're coming from.
And obviously, Josh Harris and David Blitzer know many people in the world of sports themselves.
They know everybody in the world of sports themselves.
They know everyone in the world of sports themselves. They're massive in this industry. So tell us about this strategic strategy behind bringing in Dick's in this way, because they obviously, beyond just raising the capital.
Yeah, Dick's has like 850 stores across the country, but they also have this thing called House of Sport. Have you heard of that?
Mm-mm.
So.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's a venue for birthday parties. I've gone there so many times.
Yeah, House of Sports. So they have you do community events in there. You have all the kids in, and basically have a sports related party, right? They have
organized gym class.
An organized gym class. And when you pair that up with what Unrivaled offers, like this, it just makes a lot of sense, right?
Wow. Well, I didn't know. I don't know anything. But can they do weddings? Nothing. Anyway.
I mean,
I'm sure for some people.
If you pay them, I'm sure they'll let you do it.
We can look into that, Michael.
Now, Dick's Sporting Goods, they are also going to have a big influence on the company's board of directors, correct?
Yeah, and that's how they're going to explore partnership opportunities between these two companies, right? So Dick's has been again really active in this space, and they want to be. Think about how much business goes through youth sports into Dick's Sporting Goods, where you buy all your soccer balls and your baseball bats and anything you could possibly need for your kids to play sports. They're going to be there and they're going to be involved. And in a lot of ways, it's like that's as important as the flashier parts of their business, like, you know, running shoes and Nikes and things like that.
Is the idea of them to be at these events that Unrivaled is hosting?
They haven't revealed anything about how they're going to work this out, and I think that's something they are still figuring out how to approach.
They should have pop-up stores, because I don't know how many tournaments I used to go to and forget my cleats. I had to have a separate pair of cleats in each of my parents' cars.
On site?
I'd have to go to a store somewhere else
sense.
and find someone, because I forgot them in my bag all the time.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. Yeah. So, Kim, you talked with Andy Campion, the CEO. Is there any sense that this is a company, Unrivaled, that will at some point go public?
Yeah, it's really, really early on, right? They've only been around for 1 year, and I believe they host about 1.4 million visitors a year, 15 properties so far, looking to expand. Again, they're going to spend some of this $120 million they just raised on more properties, more leagues, and more. They own like Cooperstown All-Star Village, which is a family resort plus a baseball tournament for the kids where they
Ira
stay in
Boudway
bunk
wrote about
rooms
it on Bloomberg Business Week. Fantastic article, by the way.
Story about
call back
equity.
to a previous Business of Sports podcast episode.
Yeah, Ira really dug deep into this about private equity getting involved in youth sports and again, like professionalizing this essentially, right? It's becoming more corporate than ever.
Now they're talking about also getting into an opportunity, New England flag football.
New England flag football, and they're rebranding it as Unrivaled flag. Flag football is one of these areas in youth sports that everyone is paying attention to. You know, Nike, Under Armour, the NFL says that they're prioritizing this and trying to develop that so that they have more grassroots interaction with the sport in a way that's less dangerous for kids, right? So flag football, big focus, and Unrivaled thinks it's going to be their next big thing.
I mean, everyone wants it to be their next big thing, right? Leading up to the Olympics. Is the idea, is Unrivaled flag starting this year and leading up to the Olympics, or when is that getting off?
Yeah, it's just been rebranded, right? So it's been operating this whole time as New England flag football, but they'll still be going. And I mean, flag football. Anyone here play flag football?
Yes,
ever?
Patter Puff.
That makes sense. That also tracks, Vanessa.
Yep. Mm-hmm. That was amazing.
You were.
I was. I mean, I almost didn't
go
to...
What position, Vanessa?
I was a receiver, and I also did play both ways, but I was mainly receiver, and I remember I almost skipped an entire college showcase one time to play in the games. It was only once a year when I played in high school, and I wish I had this opportunity that the girls have now, right? Because it's big for girls right now, right?
Right.
It's a big focus.
Yeah, and were you like a slot receiver, or you were just mossing people in the
I was just mossing people. I was getting the OBJ catches, actually, I would say more.
You guys are using terminology that Michael Barr and I are just shaking our heads at.
The mossing.
Wait, Kim, I want to ask you about another story you wrote recently about PepsiCo and how it now has a chief sports officer.
Oh, yeah.
What does that chief sports officer do?
Yeah, Brett O'Brien was named chief sports officer at PepsiCo. When I say PepsiCo, I mean the whole thing, right? That's
Lay's and
Frito-Lay and Gatorade and Pepsi itself, Starry, all the stuff they own. And they've reorganized their marketing arm into one big marketing thing. So previously, you'd be like the Gatorade guy, and you do all the Gatorade marketing for in sports. But now they've put it all into one division and are separating it by sport. So those experts will be the NFL person and the basketball one and so on. And that allows them to really focus in on individual sports with these big, like, anthemic campaigns. And the most recent one was the Gatorade campaign with Kendrick Lamar. Mm-hmm. His first one of these types of giant ad campaigns with a sports-related brand. And they used all the stops on that one, right? The athlete endorser list was, Caitlin Clark. It was everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a lot to this with this PepsiCo thing, because I'm going to get a little more into this. Because, I mean, they're looking more into, I guess rebranding is the best way I want to describe it. Because like you said, used to be individual products. Now it's the whole complete picture.
Yeah, and if you look at it from Frito-Lay's standpoint, right, you have all these properties, Cheetos and Doritos and everything. And if you sign a deal like they have with the World Cup, right? So Frito-Lay is a sponsor of the World Cup next year, and they'll be running a bunch of programming around that. You want to get all these different brands involved, and by centralizing it, it gives you you're put in the mindset where everyone's working toward one goal.
And so we're going to see a messy hot Cheeto from this, is what I am assuming.
Oh man! Like, will they be shaped like Messi?
Well, LeBron and Jason Tatum and all of these stars have their own flavors of chips.
That is true. But I'm thinking the Messi shape would really
sell.
Would really hit it here. That Charizard shaped
just
hot
in time
Cheeto
for World Cup, right?
Sold for like $1 million. It was crazy.
I feel like this is it opens the door to other consumer packaged food companies to do something similar. Coca-Cola perhaps might look into a chief sports officer as well, because it makes sense from that point of view.
Yeah, I think it does. And when you think about how involved these giant brands are with sports now, I mean, sports sponsors, the sponsorship deals are just growing and growing and growing. Mm-hmm. More endorsements, athletes earlier in their careers and their lives are getting signed. It's essential. It's become an essential part to the advertising ecosystem.
All right.
What happens too when you get you're going to see it, and that was a great question that you brought up, Scarlet, because when you put Coca-Cola and Pepsi together, you're going to see all this going on. Here's going for the World Cup. Here's going for the Super Bowl. This is going to continue on, and like old man Barr has got to remember, just like they used to advertise Gillette in the 1972 Super Bowl, that's all going to change. This is going to be the wave of the future.
Hey, Gillette's still around.
Yeah,
they're doing. If you look at I think the best way to look at it is like the sneaker wars that have been going on forever, right? Yeah. Nike, Adidas, all the Puma, all the teams around the world. They're just hopscotching from place to place, trying to win over leagues, trying to win over teams, trying to win over athletes, and Nike signed the German soccer national team last. That is quite something. It gets you get all up in there.
Our thanks to Kim Bhasin for joining us. He covers celebrities and athletes for Bloomberg News. Up next, we go behind the scenes at KPMG Sports Business for my colleagues Scarlet Fu and Vanessa Perdomo. I'm Michael Barr. You're listening to the Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio around the world.
This is Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio.
This is the Bloomberg Business of Sports, where we explore the big money issues in the world of sports. I'm Michael Barr, along with Scarlet Fu and Vanessa Perdomo. Damian Sassower will be back next week. KPMG US has a sports division that focuses on helping leagues, franchises, and venues run their businesses. Joining us now is Shawn Quill. He's KPMG's sports industry leader and also heads up the sports sponsorship strategy. He is here now to take us through how his firm is looking at the current sports landscape, the rise of private equity, and more. Shawn, welcome to the Bloomberg Business of Sports.
Great. Thanks for having me.
Well, let's talk about KPMG US and the firm that you are behind. Tell us about this firm.
Yeah, KPMG is one of the big four accounting firms here in the U.S. and globally. Here in the U.S., we have 36,000 people and are in every major city. And I have the privilege of serving as their national sports industry leader. So I look after our sports practice, which serves the leagues, teams, facilities, does sports deals and things like that. So it's a great place to be a part of.
So let me ask you, Shawn, at KPMG, your group helped advise on Bill Chisholm's $6.1 billion purchase of the Celtics back in March. What surprised a lot of people is how the team was even up for sale, given the Celtics had just won the NBA championship, and then it happened fairly quickly. I'm curious what your firm did in the process and what surprised you most about this process.
Yeah, it was a really interesting deal to be a part of, and it was a privilege to advise Mr. Chisholm on it. We provided financial due diligence and tax advice on the deal to Mr. Chisholm in his purchase. And it is interesting that the Celtics were up. I think that a number of owners are considering investment more so than they have in the past. You know, the inflection of private equity, of rising valuations. of the need for capital are all driving interest in either investors, both from a minority interest, but also in this case, a controlling, sale. And the Celtics certainly are one of the premier franchises within the NBA, have such an amazing legacy, and again are in the playoffs this year. And so it is one of those scarce, amazing assets. So we were fortunate to be part of it.
Shawn, what do you think it is about the current landscape of sports, of ownership, that is making more owners, get more interest from investors, be more open to private equity and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, for the owners, there's a lot of benefits, from private equity and other investors. And so a number of owners that we're working with, we advise more than 50 of the sports franchises around the U.S. across the 5 major men's sports. And they're looking for liquidity in some cases. There's changes to family ownership structures, people that are looking to no longer be involved. They're looking for investment capital. I think the number one trend right now in sports is around facility renovation or new builds. So stadiums and arenas coming online, and significant cost of investing in those new facilities. So, private equity in particular offers a lot in that space in terms of not just the capital, but the business acumen to come alongside of it. And it does create a marketplace for valuations. All of this additional support. It's a fixed asset pool in terms of professional sports. There's only so many assets. They're not increasing. It's not like a housing market. Nobody's building more franchises. There's a few potential in the future as we have expansion, but it's a fixed asset pool. And as the valuations rise, it gets harder and harder to purchase those assets. There's rules in terms of how much the principal owner has to put up, and so fewer and fewer people can afford that. And so, I think that makes it really interesting when they come across the market. But from owners seeing those valuations rise, I think some of them are looking to cash out. I think there's changes in family dynamics in other cases, and or dreams of doing other things, and better to build a new facility with someone else's money than their own.
As a sports guy, this is the only time I can say, especially in the NBA playoffs with the Knicks and the Celtics, that both teams are playing at the Garden. I can say that, and I will not be wrong either way. And which has to be a big shot in the arm, especially from this big acquisition of the Celtics. And the team has just been super duper successful.
Yeah, I mean, what an exciting series. There's a bunch of them going on right now, and they're thrilling to watch. And it was great for me, we have a relationship with Stephen Curry, so it's great to see the Warriors clinch in Game 7 and move on to the next round. And that's great for basketball. And, you're right. It's an exciting time for the NBA. NHL playoffs, of course, going on at the same time. I mean, with the NBA, I think, we've seen the belief in the reliability of the business in last year's media rights deal, a record deal for the NBA, $76 billion. It was 160% per season increase in media rights. So you think about how significant that is, and that is obviously something like that drives the valuation of the Celtics. Interestingly enough, though, in the Celtics deal for the $6.1 billion valuation, it doesn't even include TD Garden, to your Garden reference. The Celtics don't own the Garden. So that is actually, to me, especially interesting, that I think we're going to continue to see soaring valuations in sports. Even though the Celtics are one of the top franchises, doesn't include the building, doesn't have their own media network. There's a lot of aspects to it that drive those valuations, and certainly those are part of it. So yeah, an exciting time right now in basketball and in hockey.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned how that deal did not include the facilities. It just speaks to the brand value of something like the Celtics. You had mentioned, Shawn, that it's better to build with someone else's money than your own as a reason for teams and franchises to take on institutional investors. If you look at the New York Giants, the Mara and Tisch families are looking to sell some of their stake in the New York Giants. They were looking to spread that stake around to 2 to 3 wealthy individuals and families as opposed to private equity. What is the argument for team owners wanting to keep PE out of the team for now?
That's a great question. I think that it's going to depend on each ownership group and their personal preferences. I do think that private equity is attractive to a lot of owners. It not only brings the capital, but it also brings the business acumen that I mentioned. Private equity is accustomed to running and operating businesses, making them more efficient, realizing the value of data and analytics. And sports is primed to have that kind of inflection of business acumen. In particular, data and analytics, like in terms of new facilities and new stadiums, and just in terms of the loyal fan base, you're only at the tip of the iceberg in the industry in terms of leveraging data. There is so much potential. We know so little about the typical fan, about why they come, when they come, what they consume while they're there, what would bring them back. How you get them to come more frequently. And I think most franchises are not leveraging that data well. The infrastructure in terms of the technology is available, but it's not yet there, or it's not integrated, or they're not pulling the insights out of that data. And so, in my mind, private equity really offers a lot of value to that mix. But yeah, in the case of certain owners, some that have owned the team for a long time, they're not looking to have that much of a change in terms of the way that things are governed or structured or run. It may just be bringing in that capital. It may just be bringing in others that could add to their ownership group in a positive way. And I saw one of the rumored individuals we also have a relationship with, so I won't comment on it, but obviously adds to the further brand and the legacy of the franchise. And so there's other reasons to bring in investors. I think we are seeing more and more of a trend of former athletes and celebrities getting interested and involved in sports.
We love to see athletes get involved in ownership, and I think it adds a lot to them, to their capital, like you said, and to the brand as a whole, like we potentially will see with Eli Manning and the Giants one day, maybe. But as we talk about facilities, I want to get a little bit more into that and why. I mean, you said we don't know a lot about the fans that are coming, what brings them back and things like that. But then we see places like Capital One Arena where the Washington Wizards and Washington Capitals play, and they added a whole new immersive art exhibit to the arena, which is not necessarily a sports thing, but it is something to add to the arena. Tell us about why something like that adds to the facility, why maybe does it bring in new fans? Why do it?
Sure. Well, monumental sports and entertainment. So the Capitals, the Wizards, the Mystics. So in the heart of our nation's capital in Washington, D.C., is actually a client of KPMG's. We're advising them on their fan experience. They're embarking on a $1 billion project to basically rebuild that arena in the heart of the city, and adding a lot to it in terms of mixed-use real estate and technology. And your question is a really interesting one. I think if you think about the fact that most of these owners own their own buildings, it's sort of akin to having a vacation house and not using it much. They only have the lights on mostly in the evenings around games. In the case of Monumental Sports and Capital One Arena, they've got at least two teams. They've got an NBA and NHL team. From the men's, they now are putting more of the Mystics games in that arena, given the surge of popularity of the WNBA. And so they're able to fill that building. But if you're not using the building, you're not generating revenue. It's just sitting there unused, unutilized. And so they are looking for all sorts of creative ways to keep the doors open more frequently. A few years ago, they were the first arena to put in an in-arena sports book with Caesars. That keeps the doors open, 24/7, 365 days a year. KPMG actually put in a new business suite inside of the arena about 2 years ago. We actually use it as an office where we meet with our clients during game days or non-game days, but off of game day hours. So we'll go in there, have a client meeting with our clients, and then maybe transition and watch a hockey game or a basketball game inside the arena. So for the arena and for the owners, it means new revenue. It means using the building more frequently. And that's the game, right? They want concerts, other non-sporting events in the arena as much as possible. And they want it to be a center point in the community as well, to bring people together and have a place where everybody meets there and is part of the experience there.
I know we're running short on time, but I have two letters, AI, which if you're a poker player stands for all in if you have pocket aces. But
that's old school.
That's the old school. But artificial intelligence is here to stay. It's not going to go anywhere. And how does that incorporate into your business model when you are doing sports deals?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, whether we're auditing a team or providing tax compliance or advising on the fan experience, AI is a critical part of all of it. We leverage that within our own systems and processes for how we serve our clients and in those first two areas like audit and tax. And, from a consulting standpoint, what we're doing at Monumental Sports as a continued example in the fan experience, AI is central to that. I mean, that is how you derive the insights from the technology. If you think about, like, say, frictionless concessions, how you come into the arena, or how you buy merchandise or buy food and beverage. It's not just for efficiency. It's not just for convenience, but the arena owners or the technology is able to derive insights from your behavior from seeing that, and AI helps make that more efficient. We're only starting to crack the code in terms of how to leverage that in sports. And, there's a lot of great tools that are emerging and are available where you can then take those insights and then change the way that you design your fan experience to better leverage those insights.
Our thanks to KPMG US's sports industry leader, Shawn Quill. Up next, we turn to golf and the Kohler family's long history with the sport. For my colleagues Scarlet Fu and Vanessa Perdomo, I'm Michael Barr. You're listening to the Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio around the world.
This is Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio.
Thanks for joining us on the Bloomberg Business of Sports, where we explore the big money issues in the world of sports. I'm Michael Barr, along with Scarlet Fu and Vanessa Perdomo. Damian Sassower is off. This week, PGA of America held the PGA WORKS Collegiate Championship presented by Chase and Kohler. The venue was Whistling Straits, which is owned by the Kohler family, which has a long-standing relationship with golf. Here to talk to us about the Kohler family's golf ties, the tournament, and its future is Kohler Chair and CEO David Kohler. David, welcome to the Bloomberg Business of Sports. By the way, I just bought a sink from you guys. The shameless plug.
Hey, we appreciate it. Thank you so much, Michael and Scarlett, and I'm delighted to be here.
Oh, thank you, sir. You just presented the PGA WORKS Collegiate Championship, which is nice, and that's for the first time. Tell us about that.
Yeah. Well, it's such a great honor. It's such a great event. If you look at the 38-year history of this event and what it means to the game of golf in terms of growing the game of golf, it's done so much over the years. And I think, as you know, the PGA of America and the PGA of America's foundation, the PGA Reach Foundation, really anchor this and run this. And then we are very honored to be a sponsor and partner. We signed a 6-year agreement for this. So we sponsored over 6 years, and then we host the event twice. And there's 180 participants, and they're coming from schools across the country, predominantly HBCUs, but there's some contestants from non-HBCU schools. And these are incredible student athletes. I mean, just to play at this level of golf is one thing, but they're also, great students. They're ambitious about their future career that could be in the game of golf. It could be a professional golfer. It could be in the golf industry, or it could be in other professions. And this is really a gateway for those students to compete at a high level and also work on the next steps of their career progression. So we couldn't be more honored to participate in this.
And you're a passionate ambassador for this program as well, this event. Can you tell us a little bit, David, about how Kohler got involved in this event? What was the history of it?
Yeah, we've been really good partners with the PGA of America, for decades. And that was started by my father in the PGA of America long ago. We've hosted 3 PGA championships here at Whistling Straits. And then just recently, the 2021 Ryder Cup, which many would call one of the greatest Ryder Cups in the history of golf. So our relationship with the PGA of America goes back a long time. And then we've also been very involved with PGA Reach, their foundation. And my wife, Nina, is actually the incoming chair of the PGA Reach Foundation, and she's been a trustee on that foundation. So we've been involved with the philanthropic arm of the PGA of America as well as the PGA of America over the years. So this was just a natural extension as we look forward and really want to get more intentional on helping to grow the game of golf and helping youth. This was a great step, and we'll be doing more with amateur championships in the future and events like that.
I think it's, as we're talking about the partnership you guys have and growing the game and things like that, Kohler will also provide a grant to the PGA WORKS, the HBCU golf, towards the HBCU Golf Scholarship Endowment. Tell us about growing the game in that way and providing a more diverse opportunity for other people in a narrow space.
Yeah, and I think, all of us know that, golf is not an inherently diverse sport, right? Even though some of the greatest, players in history have been diverse, but inherently just given access to the game, it's been more difficult to have a high diversity sport. So I think the PGA of America is very interested in that, as all of us, who love the game of golf because of how much it does for individuals and growth, and how much it can add value to society more broadly. So there's a definite interest there. And if you look at HBCUs in general, they account for about 3% of universities in the United States, but 20% of the Black population or African Americans graduate from HBCUs. So they provide an incredible resource to the United States and to the world. And making sure that, they have a championship level a competition that some of the bigger schools, might have and bigger golf programs might have, we think is an important part of this, growing the game and making sure that, those minority serving institutions have, a grand championship, if you will, and access to sponsors and other companies and, of the profile that, some of the bigger schools would have. And so, this has been nothing short of that. I mean, we've been very proud to host it and create an event experience here that's, just as good as a major championship, if you will. Obviously, it's not going to have the number of spectators and sponsors, but in terms of the hospitality, the way the players are treated, playing on, one of the greatest courses in history that all the greatest players have walked and played, this is a real championship experience for these student athletes.
I want people to understand, PGA of America, you guys have over 30,000 members, both men and women, and they are golf pros. And even more important, as you talk about growing the game, they work at over 10,000 golf facilities worldwide. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, it's so important. And that's really what the PGA of America does. I mean, it's an organization in service of and supported by these 30,000 PGA professionals that work across private clubs and public courses and municipal courses, all over the country and world. And it's really important. And I think their support of diversity and what this means has been foundational for the success of this. Because if not for them wanting to do this, and they're seeing that importance of growing the game, in real time, because they're there on the front lines in all of these clubs and courses, working with younger players, growing players, and they're seeing how the game is diversifying and how it's growing, and the importance of this, because not only for professional athletes, but also the golf industry is a big industry. So we want to see many of these kids, these student athletes, also find careers in the golf industry, whether it's in golf course management, superintendents, or running clubs and general management, or being a PGA professional.
Yeah, talk about that part a little bit here, because before the pandemic, it felt like golf was, going, I don't want to say on its way out, but this idea that it wasn't attracting the numbers it needed to in terms of young people, in terms of a more diverse population. But the pandemic changed all of that, because people needed to find a way to stay active and be outside and be socially distant. And golf provided that opportunity. So I'm curious to hear more about the golf adjacent industries that exist and the prospects for growth there.
Yeah, COVID was one of the best things that ever happened to golf. The numbers really exploded. And the best thing, about that is it's continued on the growth trajectory. So I think that rebirth of the game and people getting back into the game, younger people getting into the game, that trend has continued. And our courses here in Kohler, Wisconsin, have continued to have record years after the Ryder Cup in 2021 because of this trend. And the other thing has been off-course golf, meaning all the video golf, the Top Golf, and the studios opening up around the country and clubs that are bringing golf and access to urban areas. Joining a golf club is expensive. The wait lists in all the top urban markets today could be 3 years, 5 years. So younger people, younger families in their 20s and 30s, they don't have access necessarily to these clubs, but they can join one of these new emerging clubs like Uptown Golf or some of these that are emerging, where you can have a membership and go in and play video golf, and there's a bar, restaurant, there's workplaces if you want to work there, and then work on your game, play around. And so I think that is really helping to grow the game too, is that growth in video golf and off-course golf here in the United States. A trend that you've seen in Korea and other markets for many years, but now it's really having more of a place here in the U.S. too.
I'm so glad you mentioned that video golf and off-course golf being where young people find an interest, develop an interest in the sport itself. I'm curious, TGL, of course, just had its first season, and it's been, definitely gotten a lot of attention. It has a lot of professional players with some big owners behind them. How do you see that developing the next generation of golfers, the kinds that will eventually be playing in the PWCC?
Yeah, I think the trends, it's right on trend, and it's creating a different way to watch. It's coming on in the evenings, so you can watch it more in prime time in a bite-sized chunk versus having to commit an afternoon to watch a whole tournament. So I think that's good. So it's an interesting new product. I think it's still in early days. I think they've got to continue to work with the product to continue to make it more exciting, maybe a little more smack, a little more, interest and wow, because, professional players today are just that, they're not actors and actresses, they're professional focused players. And so I think, mixing it up maybe with a Kevin Hart in there here and there to commentate.
Good
and
idea.
Some other things to spice it up is probably what they need. But, the competition itself is, these are top players and they're playing to win against each other. So I think they have it there, but we just need to continue to spice up the theater.
I'm all for bringing Kevin Hart and Snoop Dogg together, like how they did for the Olympics.
Totally agree.
All right, listen up and listen good. Our thanks to Kohler Chair and the CEO, David Kohler, for joining us. And thank you. For my colleagues, Scarlet Fu and Vanessa Perdomo, I'm Michael Barr. Now, don't forget to subscribe to the Bloomberg Business of Sports podcast. Find that on Apple, Spotify, and all your favorite podcast platforms. Tune in again next week for the latest on the stories moving big old money in the world of sports. You're listening to the Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio around the world.